9.5 FM avec Kathleen Bao. Nous là pour connecter avec toutes les ressources financières qui aident grandir. Each day, the cost of living is increasing. It is the same as funeral and cemetery costs. Pre-plan your arrangements today and save your family the stress of finding the money later. Finance your plan up to 7 years with low down payments and affordable monthly payments. To set up your appointment, call Kathleen Barreau at 786-253-0211. 786-253-0211.
Nous même pas haïtiens, les nous fin grandi ti moun nou yo, nous ba yo éducation, yo jwenn bon job, yo vin fonder famille yo. Ki sa ki ka arrive nan vieux jour yo? Ti moun nou yo a payer bill pa yo, petit yo pral l'école, est-ce déjà préparé enterrement? Pas quitter ti moun nou yo nan problème. Rele Kathleen Barreau dans 786 253 0211 pour le cas edo préparer zafè enterrement. Pas quitter petit ou yo ap chercher l'argent dans mes amis. Rele Kathleen Barreau dans 786 253 0211 786 253 0211.
Bonsoir tout le monde, and happy elections. You are listening to your favorite Tuesday host. I'm going to make it to your favorite host at WSRF 1580, Kathleen Barreau. Today on Chat with Kat, we have a very, very special show. The show is dedicated to just the elections only. We have two very, very important people that are in the show today that are actually our guests. One of them, she's actually locally, and she is, I want to say, an activist of all kinds, whether it's for the arts, or whether it's for human rights, or whether it's for what's happening now in the political climate. She's been actually on the pavement working very, 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 very hard. I want to introduce Ms. Janan on Chat with Kat.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to chat with you because it's been a while the morning drive.
So my relationship with Janan has been, I don't know if you guys know, I used to be on the morning drive many, many years ago. I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was actually on the show and I was a producer. And that's how I got to know Miss Janan.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being on the show. My second guest, I call her my sister friend, but you guys, she's not a stranger to the community. She's actually, I want to say she's like political royalty in these streets. So she's actually has been part of the Obama campaign 2 times, both of his terms. She also took part in the Biden campaign as well, and now she's working with Caribbeans for Haitians. And I want to introduce Miss Karine Andre to the show. Welcome, Miss Karine. Karine?
Hello.
Hi, Miss Karine. Welcome to Chat with Kat.
Hi, Chat with Kat. Thank you so much for having me, Kat. Appreciate this.
I appreciate you because I know that you're headed back to D.C. and you're in a car, and I really wanted everyone to see your beautiful face, but that's okay. Thank God for technology that we have other alternates.
Indeed. I turned on the light in the car and everything, but I guess it's not bright enough. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'm so happy to have you girls here. So I only have you for 25 minutes, and I was just mentioning to Ms. Janan that I had her on because she's going to talk locally about, what's happening, the referendums, amendments that affect us here in Florida, and then I wanted you to discuss, on a national level because you actually been in the streets, you've been on the pavement, you've been knocking on some doors, you've been talking to some folks, and I just wanted you, and whatever the questions I'm going to ask you, it applies to you both. So I want you guys to kind of maybe a minute and a half, 2 minute limit, because I only have you ladies for 25 minutes, and I know you guys are going to give us an amazing show. So let's dive right in, okay?
Let's go.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. All right, ladies. So what would you say are the key differences between the major presidential candidates of this election season? I'm going to let Janan answer, and then you can answer, Karine.
Social justice, human rights, and economy. Mm-hmm. I think those those are the priorities for folks nowadays. And I want to say hello to Karen, and she's been on the pavement many, many, many years before me. Also an inspiration.
Good
How are you?
Thank you. That just means I'm old.
No. You started early. And when she left Florida, I was like, oh my God, so we need to have more people doing this and not for pépinière. But when I say human rights, and I'm talking about specifically women rights, everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
Even when they're talking about housing, but if we were to dive into the economy, we would say livable wage, better benefits, but women rights is very important for both men and women.
Okay. Karen, what would you say is a key difference between the major presidential candidates for this election season?
Well, let's just talk about their qualifications, right? So, candidate Harris has been a district attorney, so she worked at the local level as a prosecutor in San Francisco. And let me go ahead and debunk the myth that she unfairly locked up disproportionately black men. The number of people that were locked up for illegal cannabis use, which is the allegation was maybe a total of 1,000, and of those, only actually 45 received convictions, and there's very little proof that even of that 45 that any of them were black men. 45 total.
Wow.
So that's a huge debunk. Even D.L. Hughley, the national radio and comedian, went to the Democratic National Convention and apologized to her for having, yes, look it up, D.L. Hughley's DNC speech. He apologized to her and said that he was one of the people repeating misinformation without doing the research, and he owed it to her to publicly apologize because he didn't do his work, and he leverage his platform against her in 2020 without doing the research. And that's I'm citing that emphatically because that is a huge issue that black men have cited as to why they don't trust her. And of course, if she really had done these things, they should be they would be well within their rights. Another misinformation was that she was locking up parents because of their kids' truancy. Today in Florida, if my niece misses too many schools, her parents can be called to court. That is not a Kamala Harris specific program. That is something that has been implemented in lots of states. And she was actually pushing a compassionate program for parents, but also trying to get parents to be accountable to making sure that their kids weren't skipping school. But she was not locking up parents. So there's a lot of exaggeration. So that's her track record at the local level. Then she worked at the state level, statewide. California is one of the biggest nations. The Attorney General for California or any state is the top prosecutor protecting the state. So drug trafficking, human trafficking, abuses by consumer industry. She was fighting for Californians, not against Californians in that position. Then she went on to U.S. Senate. Again, another role where she's elected statewide in one of the biggest nations, states in the nation. And then she went on to become vice president, which means she's serving in the executive branch. So she's serving in the legislative branch as part of the Senate, executive branch as VP, statewide officer, and also local. So she's done local, state, and federal, whereas her opponent has been a businessman, 6 times bankrupt, inherited his money from his father, and also, as we know, 34 convicted felonies, and also twice impeached. Now, yes, he's been a president, but he's been a president during the greatest economic downturn of our recent years, and he failed to uphold this country's participation in the World Health Organization protocols that protected us from Zika, chikungunya, avian flu. Remember all those flus, all those potential pandemics came through during the Obama years. How come they didn't become epidemics or pandemics? Because we trusted science. We followed what the World Health Organization protocols were to protect the nation, and we were able to not become centers of epidemics or pandemics. the Trump administration chose to not follow the World Health Organization protocols. He chose to not take COVID seriously, plunged us into a national public health disaster, and then a national economic disaster, which we have spent the last 4 years digging out of. That is the difference between the preparedness of the two candidates and the track records of the two candidates.
All right. How do each of the candidates' platform address core issues like the economy, healthcare, and climate change? Janan?
Wow, that I would have to be unbiased. Well, I'm going to answer for what I would say for both of them.
Okay.
When we need to talk about the economy, we have to also look at the geopolitics of things. If there's war, if the market goes down, there's so many factors that could enable the economy, that could make the economy look like it's doing bad. But if I'm looking at it from a grassroots point of view, people need to have jobs, they need to have livable wage, and they need to be able to connect with everything that they need in order for them to live. It's one thing for you to get paid good money, but if the price of gas, the price of transportation, the price of housing, the price of daycare or insurance, especially in Florida, keeps on rising, then you're not living well. And I think the American people, that's what they're looking for from either candidate. That's what I would say.
Okay. Karen, you want to chime in?
Yes, I agree 100% with what she said. Most elections come down to what we call kitchen table politics. When I sit at my kitchen table and I'm balancing my checkbook and I look at how much I brought in and how much is going out and I look at what's left at the end of the month, that's either going to sway me towards a candidate or sway me towards against the candidate. The issue here is that candidate Trump has done a great job of being a con man, of convincing people that he, because of his businesses, brought a great economy while he was in office for 4 years. No, he inherited a great economy after 8 years of Obama. And remember, Obama inherited a failing economy from Trump. He turned it around. He handed it, from Bush, and he turned it around in 8 years and handed it over to Trump. And like I said earlier, that all went out the window with COVID and quarantine and the nation's businesses being stopped for 4 years. So now Biden and Harris inherit this. They have to stop COVID, turn the economy around, and they are still in the process of doing that. But as a result of all of these things that came along with COVID, guess what happens now? Private industry who lost all that money, now they're trying to recoup it. And what are they doing? They're doing what people do during hurricanes. They price gouge. You know how people during hurricanes, they turn up the gas to $8 a gallon, so they're trying to make all this money? That is what's happening right now. That is why eggs cost $6 a dozen. That's why gas and a whole bunch of other commodities are at the price that they are. Now, that's private industry. Those are the one percenters. Those are Trump's boys, the guys who got the tax cuts. So what is this current administration and the Harris administration prepared to do? She has already stated emphatically that she is ready to place a ban on price gouging for housing, for food, for necessities. So there is a plan to hold private industry accountable, and that is why so much money is being pumped into the Trump administration potential coffers, because that is not what the 1% want. They don't want a government that is going to hold them accountable to being fair to the American people. So you're right. Absolutely, people are pissed off. They feel like their dollar's not stretching far enough, and inflation is real, but we have to remember what the causes of the inflation are, and we have to now talk about what the solutions are. So there will be a ban that is going to be placed to hold the private industries accountable for being unfair to the American people, so that they can have more at the end of the day, at the end of the week, or at the end of the month in their paycheck.
And I wanted to add that, and when Ms. Andre just lay out all this plan, so the difference will be having a plan for those people to live better, or choosing somebody whom you think could just have a tantrum and then start declaring a bunch of wars that's just going to affect everybody's daily life.
Exactly. All right.
And moreover, we didn't talk about health care. We were told this man was been running since 2016. He served in office as a president for 4 years, and now 4 years later, he says he has concepts of a plan for health care for the United States.
Concepts, wow.
That sounds like a Haitian candidate saying, I'm not going to tell you my plan because you might steal it.
Wow, concepts.
Might steal it.
All right. How might the results of this election affect the daily lives of average citizens across the country? Karen, you can take this one.
So I don't just vote for myself when I vote. I vote for every black man I love because there's a candidate saying if he gets elected, he will give police immunity for their actions. Imagine if that immunity existed when Derek Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck. He would not be in prison right now. So that's a bullseye on the target, on the back of every black man I love, which is why I can't even imagine why there are black men that are still wanting to vote for this man. So that's a potential very scary reality for the lives of everyday Americans, and not just black men. The other thing is, as daughters and sons of immigrants, we know and we can see and believe that when this man says he's going to do something after the last 4 years he had in office, he can and will do it because now he can move quicker because he's been in office 4 years and he knows where the levers are and he can move quickly to enact some of the things he says. And he's serious about trying to enact mass deportations. And it is not a right to have naturalization in this country. You're not obligated. There's no place in the Constitution that says we are guaranteed the right to come here and become U.S. citizens. So he has already started talking about not only stopping naturalization, but also denaturalizing people. He's also talked about stopping people from being able to apply for their spouses to become citizens through them. So not only do we have the specter of potential increased deportations, probably bringing back the Muslim ban, probably more talks about the wall, but also now for those who are here potentially denaturalizing us or stopping us from legally bringing in potential fiancés to become citizens. So these are not threats. These are promises. And again, having had 4 years in office, he can move a lot more quickly and nimble than he would 4 years ago. Now, as it pertains to the potential Harris-Walz administration, let me be clear. There is no candidate or no administration that is perfect. There are things that I want to see, and we will have to hold the Harris administration accountable for. However, I know that we can better negotiate with a woman and an administration that is willing to listen than someone that is set on getting vengeance, literally talking about keeping lists of enemies, and also potentially putting additional Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court that would be there for life. So potentially under a Harris administration, you are hearing someone saying, listen, I don't have all the answers, but I can start with trying to put $25,000 in your hand if you want to become a first-time homeowner. I can put $50,000 in your hand if you're a small business owner and you're trying to drive entrepreneurship. I can put programs in place to help seniors because now we have a sandwich generation of people your age or even younger or older, Kat, who either have children or ailing parents that they have to take care of, that they're sandwiched in between. So she wanted to give that sandwich generation a $6,000 income tax credit for each child they have, but also put into place programs that will help the seniors. We are already working by the way, I'm a Biden administration official. I just recently left. We just worked on legislation to bring down the cost of prescription drugs so that seniors don't have to cut the pills in half or order drugs from places in California because big pharma, again, big industry, price gouges and doesn't care about whether average everyday Americans can afford their prescription drugs. Again, this is not just a fight against Donald Trump. This is a fight against the big corporate interests that don't give a damn about whether we live or die. It's all about profits, profits, profits. So in a Trump America, I've explained some of the dangers, but in a Harris-Walton administration, I've given you some examples of the plans that they have already explained that they want to continue or build upon from the Biden-Harris team. Not to mention continuing to work on climate change. That still does have a disproportionate effect on our urban communities as well. I'll pause there.
All right, so we'll go to the next question for the sake of time. So, Janan,
I took up the whole time? My bad.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
In 30 seconds, I only wanted to add that I like the fact that you say that, we would have more leverage to keep the administration accountable, but we also need to keep the voters accountable and educated, because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of things that they're hearing. Like, for example, that under the Democratic administration, they have more people being deported. They need to understand the process also of Congress. And if when the Republicans are there, Congress is always a majority. When the Democrats are there, Congress is also a majority. So either way, they end up losing. So when they need to vote, they need to vote down the line.
That's right.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Which groups or regions of voters have the most at stake in this election, and why? Go ahead, Karine.
No, I'll let my sister go first.
Okay.
I would say places like Florida, Arizona, Texas, because that's where they have most migrants going to live or look for a better life. So because that's where they are, I would think those states, and even Ohio and Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your thoughts, Karine?
You're saying which
groups?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Which groups or regions of voters have the most at stake in this election, and why?
That's great. I would say I would agree that some of the border states where you have migrant populations, but obviously, one of the biggest issues on the ballot is reproductive rights for women. Again, Roe v. Wade is barely 50 years old, and they have been spending the whole 50 years trying to undo it, thanks to Donald Trump and the 3 lifelong conservative judges he put on the Supreme Court that got affected. And the problem here is that you have folks who are socially conservative, as we tend to be in the Caribbean and the Haitian community, who just hear reproductive rights as a young girl, being immoral and killing babies. This ban is so much further than that. So whether it's a young girl, whether it's a wife, whether it's a young mother, first of all, it's not the government's job to be telling a woman what she can and cannot do with her body. We have to make sure we're responsible with how much leeway we give the government to govern our private civil rights issues. That's one. Two, that's between her parents, her husband, and her pastor, right? And her Lord. Second of all, this ban also stops if a couple want to do IVF in certain states, in vitro fertilization to try to have children. The ban stops that. Why would you stop people from trying to do family planning? People who do want to have children. Thirdly, we have lost a young woman at 26, as an example, in Georgia named Amber Thurman, who decided, her and her partner, right, decided together they weren't ready to have a second child. She had to drive out of state to get an abortion. She came back to her home state. There was a complication. She went to her local hospital, and because the state law tells the doctors that they can be prosecuted for helping a person that they suspect has gotten an abortion, and that until it's almost at life and death door, the doctor might be prosecuted. They hesitated. This young woman suffered for 20-plus hours, and by the time they did try to render her any medical care, she died. Wow. That is what the all-encompassing portion of this ban. It's not just banning abortion. It's banning IVF, and it's literally stopping doctors whose oath that they swear when they take the oath of medicine is to do no harm. It is stopping doctors from rendering assistance to people who are suffering. Another woman just died in Texas as a result. 40 hours she suffered. with nobody willing to put their medical license on the line to help her. That's how far-reaching these bans are. So women, so when we say men, please vote for us to protect us. It could be a woman, again, not an abortion, a medical emergency, a miscarriage happening, and the baby has to be removed because the baby has already died inside her body. You mean to tell me that woman has to stay with a dead baby in her body and have septic shock? About to take her life before a doctor can be allowed to legally help? This is insane. So women, migrants, black men, if they put a target on your back and give police immunity, I'm afraid to even think what that looks like. And obviously all Americans who are going to still living under Trump tax plan, right, that expires in 2025, and only relief has been given to the one percenters who got tax cuts. So we're all impacted here.
Okay, so Janan, really quick, can you highlight any key referendums or state-level issues that could impact us nationwide?
The homestead exemption in Florida, it was important for us. The amendment for the abortion, that's also important, as well as the repeal of the public campaign financing requirement. To me, I've been around the polls. I've been going around asking people questions. I realized that voting is not what it used to be, just like flying is not what it used to be. The level of anxiety, the level of misinformation or disinformation has been so high that even when we look at the ratings, we realize that young people like you who are less than 30, they don't vote. And it's really older people that are going to the poll voting, and they're doing a good job at going early, but the suspense is still there, the anxiety is still there.
Karine, I'm going to ask you in 45 seconds, how could a shift in leadership impact major federal policies such as immigration and international relations?
So to Danae's earlier point, we also need to keep the Senate, and we can flip the House because that would give the next president, if it's Harris, a full mandate to move forward on programs that are going to help the American economy and help working-class families. A shift that goes towards Trump will put us undoubtedly in international harm's way because he has fascist and dictator tendencies, and it will empower other fascists around the world. We've seen mimics of him coming out of Australia, out of Brazil, and out of Italy. And it will also, again, 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists have said that a Trump administration would be disastrous for the economy.
Wow. Man, I wish I can keep you ladies for another 30 minutes. I actually have to go. Thank you so much, Janan, for coming. I know you were out there on the pavement, you know, and you were driving back to D.C., Karine. So thank you so much, ladies, for being on the show. You guys were listening to Chat with Kat. I was your host, Kathleen Barreau. You were listening to WSRF 1580 AM and 99.5 FM. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Perfect. Please, guys, if you haven't voted, you have until in some part 7 and 7 minutes. And you have 30 minutes to vote, so please guys vote. And good night and thank you guys.
Thank you.